Good morning, my friends. Today it's a nice cloudy day again. We've had a nice streak of this exact same weather pretty much every day. It's interesting to see. So as you all know, it's Friday today, and it's time for another book review. And today I'm going to be reviewing You Can Negotiate Anything by Herb Cohen. This is basically a book that's obviously, judging from the title, it's about negotiation. The concepts of negotiation, negotiating tactics, of all various different kinds. Herb Cohen makes a lot of emphasis in the earlier chapters talking about hardball negotiation tactics, not as a means to suggest that people should use them, but as a means to understand what they are and where they come from. It's generally the hard sell tactics and the people that sort of find out everything they know about you, right? And that's like the main point about this book that he tries to convey, is that really all negotiation is finding out what the other person wants in this specific negotiation, which is obviously pretty simplistic, but it's actually pretty in-depth when you think about it, that they have a lot of things that they want. An example is, for instance, he calls like the hardball, he calls it Soviet tactics, right? Is when, for instance, you're buying a suit in a store, and you get the suit on, you try it on, and the guy takes a long time to sort of put it all together for you. And then at the end of it, once you're buying the suit, he'll throw in, a shirt and a belt and a tie and some shoes maybe. And this is where the real money comes in, because obviously salespeople are making money from commission. And that's part of negotiation, of getting what you want, is sort of taking something that seems unnecessary, or sort of like in comparison to what you're already getting, is this very minor concept or minor thing that's being part of the negotiation, right? If you went into a store and someone kept pressuring you to buy a belt and shoes and a tie, you'd be like, no, it's too expensive. But if you're already buying a suit, it's like, okay, let's say the shoes, tie, and belt would cost you like $300, and the suit's like $1,000. It's like, well, it's only $1,300. But if you get rid of the suit, then it's like, well, that's $300, right? And that's sort of the concepts that he talks about when you're negotiating, is that if you want to get more of what you want, you have to do it by comparison. And that's what the Soviets did when they tried to negotiate with Americans, right? They try to get real estate, they try to get land, basically, and they would like really lowball their offerings. And people, and obviously, like, let's say they want to sell like a pipeline or something like that for, let's say, like $800 million, and they say like, no, we'll buy it for $50 million, and they'd be like, no, that's ridiculous, we're not doing that. And then they'll say like, okay, we'll negotiate, we'll find a middle ground, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, whatever. And what the Soviets do all the time is that they're very organized at making delays, right? So they'll always be delaying the people until there's a point where they need to sell this pipeline. And since they've been focused so much on selling it to these people because of they've made plans, and they kept delaying until the end. It's like, this is like the concept of time that's very important with negotiation. They end up selling it to them at the asking price for $50 million, or it was something like that. It was something really ridiculous that they ended up doing, just because the Soviets were so good at keeping them into their grasp by like suggesting that maybe there was a chance for negotiation, but they just kept delaying it until the people who were selling this piece of land had absolutely no choice but to sell it to them. And that's a concept that the author, experienced himself when he was doing some business in Japan. He was only there for a week, and he had to negotiate terms. And every day he was there, it's like, all right, let's start doing this. And he'd say like, no, let's go out, let's have some fun, let's go get something to eat, let's go play some golf. And anytime he would try to negotiate, they would like put it off, until the very last minute when he's like literally in the taxi with them, like filling out the papers for a negotiation, which he had to basically accept whatever demands they had. He had no real room to negotiate because he had to get on his plane. And that's where the time factor comes in, which is what he emphasizes in, if you really want to get something, time is probably one of the most valuable assets that people sort of hold to them. And if you can be patient and sort of delay time and use time to your advantage, you can basically get whatever you want, which is not something he recommends. It's just something that you look out for when people sort of use time as a means to get something out of you, in order to sort of drive your impatience to the very edge, right? Which is generally, like how people like to convince you to do things, is that they'll do a lot of bullshit in the meantime to sort of delay the time until there's like a very short window of opportunity where they basically get what they want, because you're such in a hurry to get out of that situation because you're so impatient that you'll accept anything pretty much, which is interesting. The second half of the book, he talks more about a mutual negotiation in terms of where, you have two people who are dissatisfied and they find a means to be satisfied at the end of it. Both of them get exactly what they want, which is the beneficial negotiation. The first part is cutthroat, where it's not mutual. It's not something that both parties are getting something in return. It's usually one party getting something and the other person getting ripped off pretty much, and they're like, oh, why? I wonder how that happened. And it was really all about how there was time involved and how the other person just managed to know exactly what the other person valued at that current time and used that to his advantage. So this is the other aspect of negotiation, which is getting the two benefits, which is really about the same concept of finding out what the other person really wants, right? And it's about gathering as much information. He brings up an example of, these two kids, and there's a father, he has two kids, and they only have one baked potato left or something for dinner, and both of the kids want the baked potato. And the father says, it's like, all right, well, I guess I'll just cut the potato in half and give each half to the two kids, which is not actually what they want. Both of them want the full potato, but that's not possible at the time. And that's sort of, a compromise, right? It's a compromise in a certain situation. And he brings up the fact that compromise is not necessarily meant to be a limitation of what people want. Sometimes it's a misunderstanding of what the actual people want, because later on the father found out that the two kids wanted different things from the potato. They didn't, like, one kid wanted only the skin of the potato, that was his favorite part, and the other kid wanted the actual meat, the actual innards of the potato. So if he realized that before just making a simple compromise, he would have realized that there was actually a much better situation for both of them, which I think is important when you're making negotiations, or just understanding a certain discussion amongst people, is that sometimes you want to make a compromise and both parties are unhappy, and you realize that you don't know enough about what these people want fully. You're not going in depth enough, and you're not asking enough questions. It's like, what exactly do you want out of this situation? And I think most people don't really know what they want until they're actually asked about it, right? And I think this comes down to a lot of debates and a lot of things that people just argue about generally, is that they're arguing for things but without clarifying exactly what they want. They know what they don't want, right? In this case of the potato, they know what they don't want is that they don't want to not have the potato. But it's like, what about the potato do they want? What specifically in this potato do they want exactly, right? Which I think is an important aspect of negotiation, and I think this book was really good at explaining it. So I definitely recommend picking it up. Definitely learned a lot about how negotiation works and how to sort of create scenarios in which both parties can win at the highest level without having to make like a negative compromise, which sort of impacts both of them. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that, and I hope you have a wonderful day.